Ed Rothstaylor is the son of a powerful noble family of ruffian. He is feared for his bullying and bad behavior at the academy where he acts like king. One day, Ed receives a letter from his family. The letter says he is disowned and removed from the family register. He loses everything: his title, his wealth, and even kicked out of his dorm room. Students at the academy gossip about his downfall. They still avoid him because of his bad reputation, but many believe he deserves his fate for trying to cheat during the entrance exam. Ed feels that life is unfair. The people who judge him don't know the real him. He isn't the villain they think he is. The truth is strange. He has been transported into his favorite video game, the failed Swordsman of Sylvania. In this game, he isn't a hero or a genius, but a minor villain who appears only at the start of the story. This character is weak, powerless, and destined to end up as a beggar in the game's ending. Ed checks his stats and feels hopeless. His stamina, strength, and magic are embarrassingly low. He is supposed to be a student of magic, but even a farmer NPC has better stats. He realizes this is why his character is so insignificant in the game, but Ed doesn't want the ending where he becomes a beggar. He decides he will change his fate, no matter how hard it is. The academy is still his chance to build a new life. It is a top school, and anyone who graduates has a bright future. He knew tough it was extreme starting part of the scenario, but is also extremely important for him. Since his tuition for the first semester is already paid, Ed decides he will stay, work hard, and use his knowledge of the game to survive. His goal is to graduate and live a peaceful life. However, his low stats make him doubt if he can succeed. So, he decides to focus on surviving the next 10 days until the semester starts. To avoid the students and their stares, Ed leaves the academy grounds and goes into the nearby forest. On the first day, he tries cutting logs and moving them with magic. His weak magic drains his energy quickly, and he becomes hungry. Remembering a story from his grandfather, Ed tries to make stew from tree bark. It tastes awful and makes him feel sick. He realizes wood is better for building than for eating. Ed works hard to build a shelter. He cuts logs, makes a frame, and puts everything together. After hours of effort, his shelter is finally complete. His stats improve slightly and earns a small achievement. This gives him hope. Ed notices that not he is skilled with magic, but also good with his hands. Using his handy skills, he crafts a harpoon, which also unlocks an achievement. He uses the harpoon to catch fish, cooks them, and enjoys his first proper meal in 2 days. For the first time, he feels he can survive. While eating, Ed hears someone behind him. He turns and sees Princess Sylvania. She is the third princess of the Klol Empire and the person who exposed his cheating during the entrance exam. Because of her, Ed lost everything. Now she looks angry to see him still at the academy. Sylvania doesn't understand why Ed hasn't been expelled yet. She thinks he is shameless and warns him to leave the academy. Ed feels nervous because Sylvania has a special power that lets her see through lies. If she reports him, he will be expelled, and will be the end for him. As she scolds him, Ed sees his fish burning in the fire, adding to his frustration. Ed knows he needs to calm her down. He tries his best to divert her attention, then simply bends down and thanks her. Sylvania looks surprised, detecting no lies from Ed. She knows Ed's family, the Rothstaylors, are infamous for their genocidal experiments on humans, and are considered a trash family that should be destroyed or executed. But for Ed, it's different. He is lucky because he has already been disowned by his family. This gives him an advantage in the academy, or else it would be end for him in the game. Ed begins to wonder why she is alone in the forest without any escort or uniform. He recalls that it's likely for the class placement test in video games timeline, where students are supposed to find magical beads. Ed knows that Sylvania wants to join Class A, the academy's top class. He offers to help her, knowing she will struggle to pass the test without assistance. Sylvania grows suspicious of his offer, thinking it might be a trick. Ed remains calm and insists he is being honest. He tells her that if he lies, she can have him expelled immediately. This is his last chance, and he knows he has to convince her to trust him. Ed helps Sylvania by telling her the exact location of the magical bead, hidden under Marilda's guardian tree in the middle of the island. Following his instructions, she heads there and finds the bead, just as Ed had described. Sylvania feels surprised and conflicted. The Ed she knew from 3 days ago was a cheater and a liar, but now she finds herself unable to understand this new version of him. The next day, the class placement tests come to an end, and the students gather to await their evaluations. Professor Glast arrives and asks everyone to present the beads they have collected. Some students come forward with different objects, like magical eggs, but they are placed in Class F for failing to meet the test's requirements. The professor explains that the beads needed for success lack magical power, which makes them harder to identify. 2 of these beads were found by the main protagonists, Jix and Lortel. Then, Professor Glast raises his hand and points to the final student who has retrieved the 3rd bead from the guardian tree. He declares the student to be at the top of the class, leaving everyone in awe. Sitting by the riverside, Ed makes a crude fishing rod, earning another achievement. He remembers from the game that Princess Sylvania developed sharp judgment skills because she grew up dealing with people who flattered her or lied to her. She became so good at spotting lies that no one could trick her. But this skill also made her life harder. In the game's original story, Sylvania gets the title Princess of Love, not because of her beauty, but because of her hard work. She fails the class placement test and works hard to improve, eventually proving herself and earning respect. Ed knows that if he tells her where the magical bead is, he can avoid getting expelled, but it will ruin the original story. If the story changes too much, all the knowledge Ed has about the game will become useless, and he will lose his advantage. However, the information Ed gives Sylvania about the bead, though seemingly a gift, is actually a cleverly laid trap. Sylvania wants to keep her royal identity a secret because she feels embarrassed by the special treatment her status brings. She wants to prove herself without relying on her status. While the bead would guarantee her top results in the placement test, she cannot accept it because finding it without her own effort would compromise her values. Fenia is determined to walk the righteous path, which is how she earns the title Princess of Love in the original story. Since Ed can't lie to Fenia, he uses mind tricks to control the situation. As he predicts, Fenia refuses to take the bead, leaving her without the bead she needs to pass the test. Another student, Lucy, finds the bead instead. Fenia is angry and frustrated. She knows Ed told her the truth, so she can't punish him, but his actions ruined her chance to succeed on her own. Ed feels relieved and happy to have retained his spot in the academy and kept the story on track. He quickly heads back to the academy to attend the opening ceremony for the new semester. At the ceremony, Ed eats and enjoys the food, feeling more at ease than before. Many students notice the change in his behavior. The Ed they once knew as a bully and infamous troublemaker now seems like a completely different person. Ed's focus is now clear. His one and only goal is to graduate from the academy. Among the groups of students, there is one girl who can't help but notice Ed. She observes him closely, surprised by how much he seems to have changed, as if he's an entirely new person. On his first day back at the academy, the faculty praised everyone who has made to the academy into new improved form. However, Ed is unexpectedly called to meet the principal. He fears the worst and thinks he might be expelled. However, to his surprise, the principal only smiles and speaks calmly. Ed suspects that the princess might have reported him, but feels relieved when he realizes the principal doesn't seem to know about his actions at all. This experience makes Ed more cautious. He resolves to stick closely to the original story and avoid straying from it. While living in the forest, Ed's survival skills improve significantly over time. He becomes skilled at crafting good quality arrows and begins thinking about how to enchant his arrows with magic spells. One evening, after hunting for food to prepare dinner, Ed heads back to his tent. On his way, he notices a girl sitting under the Marilda tree. It is the same girl who had noticed him during the opening ceremony, Janica Failover. Janica is the genius spirit sorcerer of the second year, same year in which Ed is. She sees Ed and excitedly approaches him. She enthusiastically introduces herself and tells him that the magical Marilda tree has shared stories about him with her. The tree has observed Ed in the forest but isn't bothered by his presence. This reassures Ed, giving him a sense of calm. He casually remarks that even a fierce wild wolf can have a tender heart. Janica seems surprised for a moment, but then laughs at his words. She stretches out her hand and asks if he wants to touch the spirit which she signed a contract with to be her friend. Ed, however, isn't interested in interacting with Janica further. He politely declines, saying he can't see the spirit in her hand, and excuses himself, claiming he only came to the area to gather food. With that, he walks away. The real reason Ed keeps his distance from Janica is her crucial role in the original story. He knows that Janica Failover is a key character, and building a connection with her might alter the storyline, costing him any informational advantage he has to navigate the game's events. As Ed walks away, Janica calls her spirit friend, a wild wolf, Marilda, the guardian of the forest. She leans against Marilda, feeling comfortable, and starts talking to it. She thinks about Ed and finds him fascinating, just as Marilda told her earlier. Even though she tries hard to be nice to him, Ed only gives short yes or no answers. Still, she believes this won't be the last time they meet. The next morning, Ed works hard to avoid being late for the academy. His shelter is far from the campus, so getting there is always a challenge. But his efforts pay off, as his stats keep improving. Ed does everything himself. His chores, washing his clothes, and carefully managing his rations and supplies. He is determined to earn a scholarship. Janica can't help but watch him from a distance, curious about his routine. When Ed finally notices her, he yells and asks why she keeps following him. He demands to know if she even realizes who he is. Ed Rothstaylor, the most infamous and dangerous person at the academy. Ed tries to stay distant from Janica, despite her polite and friendly nature. She tells him she doesn't judge him based on others' opinions because she doesn't truly know him. Ed, however, is cautious and wary. He knows Janica may seem naive and innocent, but she is the final boss of Act 1. Ed decides it's safer not to get too close or engage with her more than necessary. Feeling overwhelmed by his challenges and hardships, Ed takes a risk and asks Janica for a favor. She becomes excited, thinking it's something important. But when Ed asks for money, her mood instantly changes. Money is Janica's weakness, and Ed knows this from the game's lore. She comes from a poor background and works hard to stay at the top of her class to maintain her scholarship. Without it, she wouldn't be able to continue her education. With a downcast expression, Janica apologizes and walks away, leaving Ed feeling conflicted. 3 days later, while hunting, Ed reflects on his conversation with Janica. He regrets asking her for money, but knows he has no choice but to avoid entangling himself with key characters to preserve the original storyline. When he returns to his tent and lifts the curtain, he is shocked to find another important figure from the game. Lucy Marcel, the rare genius and the most powerful mage, sleeping inside. Lucy wakes up and immediately complains about how loud Ed is, saying she can't sleep properly. When Ed demands to know why she is there, Lucy points to the area behind him. She calmly tells him that a spirit wants to speak to him, urging him to save Janica at all costs someday. Despite Lucy Marcel pointing behind him and claiming a spirit wants to speak to him, Ed still can't see anything. He feels frustrated. Not only has he barely managed to get Janica off his back, but now he has to deal with Lucy. Lucy, with her small stature and ability to walk on air, behaves like a stray cat, showing up anywhere she finds comfortable to nap. To make matters worse, she's now using Ed's campsite and resources to skip classes and rest. Ed blames himself for this situation, and realizes he needs to act quickly before her presence causes the storyline to deviate further. While setting snare traps for hunting, Ed notices Lucy casually taking the bait, a chunk of beef, and eating it without a care. This frustrates him even more because no matter what he says, she completely ignores him. Ed realizes that if she has already come to his camp multiple times, she will likely keep returning. Worse still, as a seasoned player of the game, he knows there's no strategy to defeat Lucy. Determined to solve the problem, Ed recalls a specific detail from the game guides he read, something most players overlook. He decides to play his last card, Ed tells Lucy that he recently saw maids from Awfulus Hall searching for her. The moment she hears this, Lucy freezes in shock, her composure breaking for the first time. She hurriedly makes an excuse about remembering something urgent and vanishes into the air in no time. Ed feels relieved and silently thanks his knowledge of the game guides. He remembers that while Lucy is a formidable mage with no known weaknesses in combat, she always flees at the mention of dormitory maids. Apparently she has a habit of avoiding them, as the maids who takes care of Lucy chase after her. With Lucy gone, Ed feels a sense of triumph. He's confident her 2-day stay won't impact the storyline significantly, and is grateful it didn't take him long to figure out how to get rid of her. Once again, he has managed to protect the original story, though he can't help but note how satisfied he's starting to feel. As the game story progresses, the first major quest finally appears. Joint combat training. This is a mock one-on-one combat exercise where students use fake weapons to reduce lethality as much as possible. It is also the moment when all the main characters of the game are introduced and meet for the first time. Among them stands the main protagonist, the hero of the game, Taylor, the failing swordsman of Sylvania Academy. Ed shows little interest in the matches at first. He already knows the results since the winners are always the first-year main characters, including Taylor. However, one thing catches his attention: Janica. She appears again, full of the same enthusiasm as before. Despite Ed's repeated efforts to distance himself from her, she continues to stick to him like glue. Watching her persistence, Ed jokingly wonders if she might belong to some dog family, much like Lucy's cat family, given her wandering and clingy nature. Janica, trying to be helpful, shows Ed the match list. He ignores it at first, uninterested in the details. But when she casually mentions his name being on the list, Ed becomes alarmed. In the game's original storyline, Ed Rothstaylor is expelled by the time this quest takes place. Grabbing the list, he quickly scans it to find out who his opponent will be. Meanwhile, the most awaited fight of the event begins. The duel between the main protagonist, Taylor, and the powerful cat-like mage, Lucy Marcel. Setting the list aside, Ed focuses on the fight. Despite his current circumstances, he still feels a deep connection to Taylor's character, having spent countless hours completing the game alongside him. Though Ed now inhabits a side character's role, he still wants to cheer for Taylor. The announcer calls Lucy to the ring. Ed vividly recalls this iconic moment from the game. Taylor gripping his sword for the first time, skillfully countering Lucy's spells, and catching her off guard. Lucy then uses intermediate lightning magic, which disqualifies her, granting Taylor the honor of being the first person ever to defeat her. Nostalgia sweeps over Ed, and he eagerly anticipates witnessing this scene unfold again. The referee rings the bell, and the match begins. Taylor rushes in with his signature determination, aiming to gain the upper hand by attacking Lucy with his knuckles. But with a single lightning strike, Lucy sends him flying into the wall. Ed watches as Taylor, despite the overwhelming odds, he knows that he refuses to give up. Just as he remembers from the original story, despite of being bumpkin and all the failures he faces, he never loses hope. Taylor grabs his sword, charges forward, and catches Lucy off guard, mirroring the sequence from the game. But then, something unexpected happens. Instead of Lucy using her intermediate lightning spell as she does in the original storyline, she casts a blocking spell, halting Taylor in his tracks. She follows this with wind magic, sending Taylor flying even farther and exhausting him completely. The announcer declares Lucy the winner of the duel. Ed is stunned. Taylor was supposed to win this fight, but now Lucy has defeated him. This small change might seem minor, but Ed knows it could completely mess up the original story. He fears what might happen next. The crowd cheers for Lucy as Taylor walks away from the match, crushed and defeated. Ed feels a rising sense of panic. This is a huge problem. He quickly realizes that the magic Lucy used isn't normal. It's continuous magic, the kind that can only be obtained by forming a contract with a high-class spirit. In the original storyline, Lucy and the forest guardian spirit Marilda have no connection. However, Lucy's unexpected visit to Ed's campsite must have led her to accidentally form a contract with Marilda, making her far stronger than she is supposed to be. Ed blames himself. This change in the storyline is his fault, and now the story is spiraling out of control. Taylor, the main hero of the game, is never meant to lose this match. The announcer then calls for the next match, Ed Rothstaylor versus Princess Sylvania. The princess, still holding a grudge against Ed, eagerly prepares to settle the score in the duel, but Ed doesn't even acknowledge her. Instead, he pushes past her and runs after Taylor, who is already leaving the hall, crushed by his loss. Taylor's defeat is entirely Ed's doing. In the original story, Ed's character would have been expelled from the academy long before this quest began. But because Ed is still present, everything has changed, and now Taylor's loss risks ruining the entire storyline. Catching up to Taylor, Ed urges him not to give up. Taylor's defeat is only one setback, and Ed knows how crucial it is for him to stay in the academy. Taylor's spirit as the protagonist is essential for the story to progress. Without him, everything will collapse. Ed does his best to motivate Taylor, reminding him of his strength and potential. Deep down, Ed knows he is also protecting his own future. If Taylor gives up, Ed will face an even greater struggle to survive in this game. Taylor must stay strong, not just for himself, but for the sake of everything Ed is desperately trying to preserve. For Princess Sylvania, the first person to recognize her judgment ability is Emperor Cloel. Some believe it is a divine gift, but it isn't. She developed this ability on her own after enduring the endless politics and conspiracies within the royal palace. It became her means of self-protection, forged through years of navigating the treacherous environment of the imperial family. This is why Princess Sylvania is so confident in her judgment. She has seen the harsh truths of the imperial world clearly, through the lens of the abyss that shaped her resilience and sharpened her perception. So, whenever she wants to confront any opponent or person for to judge, she had to stare straight into the person to find out. Before the match begins, Ed casually tells Princess Sylvania to go easy on him, while Sylvania, in turn, advises him to do the same. Meanwhile, the audience whispers harsh comments about Ed Rothstaylor. In the game's original storyline, Ed was notorious for bullying Taylor and later cheering him on, making him seem hypocritical. In the original backstory, he bullied Taylor and then later acted nice by cheering for him. They think it doesn't make sense. Ed knows they are right because, in the story, his character used his position to humiliate his juniors, and when that failed, he cheated in exams and got expelled. The match begins. Sylvania forms a water ball and throws it at Ed, wanting to test him. She thinks he will dodge it using fire or wind magic. But Ed doesn't dodge or defend himself. He just stands there and takes the hit. Sylvania is shocked. Ed then calmly declares that he lost, giving the victory to her without even trying. The audience erupts into cheers for Princess Sylvania, declaring her the winner while loudly booing Ed. They shout insults, calling him worse than Taylor. Despite this, Ed calmly approaches the princess, thanks her for the match, and quietly leaves the arena. This only deepens Sylvania's curiosity. She begins questioning why he acted this way, wondering if he had no interest in the duel from the start. Ed makes an intentional choice to forfeit the match. He doesn't want to interfere with Sylvania's place in the story because he understands how important she is to the plot. He quickly leaves the arena and goes in search of Taylor. Ed believes that Taylor is the real protagonist of the tale, much more significant than the princess, and he wants to make sure Taylor doesn't give up. As Ed searches for Taylor, he is startled when Sylvania suddenly appears behind him, panting. He's surprised to see her alone, without any escort. Sylvania shouts at him, demanding to know what his true intentions are. She accuses him of having no intention to win the match, claiming he only wanted to leave the stage as quickly as possible. Sylvania's frustration boils over. She admits that she's tired of everyone at the academy. Her classmates, the professors, even the servants. She feels overwhelmed and confused, especially by Ed's actions. She demands to know who Ed really is, which only make her question him more. Seeing her so upset, Ed calmly steps closer, places his hands on her shoulders, and tells her to relax. Guiding her through a simple breathing exercise, he encourages her to breathe deeply and slowly. His calmness helps her focus and eases her frustration, if only for a moment. Feeling calmer, Sylvania realizes how she acted earlier and apologizes to Ed for her behavior. Ed notices that she has relaxed a bit and looks for a way to leave so he can continue searching for Taylor. But Sylvania starts opening up about her struggles and sadness from living in the royal palace. She talks about how hard it is to deal with constant politics and schemes, which have taken a toll on her. Even after sharing her feelings, Sylvania still wants answers. She asks Ed why he picks on Taylor. She wonders if it's because Taylor has a troubled background, and Ed wants a reason to be disowned by his own family. Ed knows there's some truth in what she says, but he pretends not to understand. He avoids giving her a clear answer, knowing it's not the right time to explain everything, and fearing it could mess up the story even more. Sylvania becomes annoyed again. She demands to know why Ed bullied Taylor but now supports him even though he tried to get Taylor expelled. Ed keeps dodging her questions, giving vague and unrelated answers. This makes her even angrier, but without proof to confront him, she lets him go, though she remains suspicious. At the door, Ed stops and turns back to Sylvania. He tells her that while she needs to focus on the tricky politics, she also needs to rest. He reminds her that the academy isn't like the palace. Here, she doesn't need to worry about everything all the time. Sylvania is caught off guard by Ed's advice. She's surprised he understands her struggle so well. It leaves her curious, as no one has ever seen through her like that before. Ed, aware that his words might have profound effect, leaves Sylvania and continues searching for Taylor, hoping he isn't too late. Finally, he finds Taylor sitting alone, holding his broken sword, looking sad and lost. Just as Ed moves closer, someone steps in his way. Isla Triss, the main heroine of the game. She firmly tells Ed not to get any closer or bother Taylor, standing in his way to protect Taylor from further trouble. Isla blocks Ed and firmly tells him that Taylor doesn't need to deal with him anymore. She accuses Ed of causing enough harm already. Then, something surprising happens. Taylor, despite looking defeated and broken after the match, stands up. He confronts Ed with a determined expression, asking why Ed is still at the academy. Ed is surprised by Taylor's strength to keep going. Even after such a crushing setback, Taylor still shows his fighting spirit. Having played the game with him countless times, Ed knows that Taylor's strength lies in never giving up, no matter how strong the opponent. He also sees the positive influence of Isla, Taylor's childhood friend and biggest supporter, who is always there to motivate him and lift his spirits. As Taylor demands answers, asking what Ed's real intentions are, Ed simply praises Taylor's swordsmanship during the duel. He acknowledges Taylor's impressive skills, a genuine compliment stemming from his experience in the game, where he fought alongside Taylor until the very end in the game. Ed turns to leave, telling Taylor he just came to see him and isn't planning anything. He has no schemes or hidden motives. While Taylor might still doubt him, Ed feels relieved, not because the storyline is slightly off course, but because Taylor, the hero he knows so well, is standing strong. As Ed walks away, Taylor and Ayla glare at him, annoyed by his calm attitude, thinking he is trying to act cool despite everything. Just as Ed leaves, suddenly, a loud explosion shakes the hall, a result of a powerful magic spell. Ed immediately recognizes the scene. In the game, this is a key event during the legendary duel between the Golden Daughter Lortel and Janica Failover. In the original story, Taylor and the other main characters were supposed to watch this match in the hall. But with the changes in the storyline, Taylor and Isla are now outside. Ed decides it's okay since the match is still happening and they may be watching from outside. This duel is important because the winner becomes the final boss of Act 1 in the game. Janica and Lortel's battle becomes fierce. Lortel uses ice magic to stop the fire spirit Janica summoned. However, the fire spirit's strength overwhelms the ice, melting it and striking Lortel. This makes Janica the winner of the match. The crowd cheers for Janica, excited that a second-year student has won. However, Janica notices Lortel being carried away by medics. She feels guilty, realizing she accidentally uses an intermediate magic spell, which violates the rules. Fortunately for her, no one seems to have noticed the mistake, but she gets traumatized by what she has done to her opponent. Unlike in the original game story, Lucy now defeats Taylor, and the whole quest concludes with Janica becoming the only senior winner, protecting the pride of the past enrolled students. Watching this, Ed notes that things are about to get even more hectic for Janica, but he considers this a relief as it might mean she won't bother him at his camp anymore. Ed decides he wants to avoid further involvement with the main characters, since getting tangled up with them only brings him headaches. 2 weeks pass after the joint combat training quest, and Ed focuses on improving himself. He significantly boosts his stats during this time. Now he can study and survive without relying on any of the main characters. His physique, stamina, and other skills grow stronger, making his body more resilient. While bathing in the river, Ed spots Janica sneaking up on him. Embarrassed, he yells at her for invading his privacy. Later, they sit together near the campfire. Janica expresses how much she likes Ed's camp, describing it as a top-secret base perfect for adventures. She mentions she needs his advice on something and asks for his honest opinion. Curious, Ed asks why she came to him instead of seeking help from her other friends. Janica explains that after Ed left the hall, her match against Lortel ended in her victory. However, during the duel, she accidentally used an intermediate-level spell, which wasn't allowed, and injured Lortel. Now she feels guilty, and can't shake the thought that she overreacted. She doesn't want reassurance from her friends, as they would likely tell her she did the right thing. Instead, she wants an honest opinion about whether she should apologize to Lortel. Ed tells Janica to do whatever feels right to her, and to apologize if she believes it's the right thing to do. While Janica is bubbly, cheerful, and cherished by everyone as the perfect friend, feeling guilty or self-critical won't erase the mistakes already made. People may encourage her and take her side, but that alone won't undo what has happened. Hearing Ed's straightforward opinion, Janica feels happy that he doesn't take sides blindly. She notices how much Ed has changed compared to the person he was last year. Though she is a lively and smiley girl, she is also a keen observer. She remembers how, when Ed once asked her for money, he didn't show the desperation most people would. Instead, his behavior subtly signaled her to keep her distance from him. Janica finds Ed intriguing and admits she likes him a lot. She tells him she wishes more people were like him, as he has become a source of strange but comforting reassurance for her. The next day at the academy, Ed finds himself in serious trouble as Lortel keeps following him and calling out to him, despite his best efforts to ignore her. He knows exactly why this is happening. The game, The Failed Swordsman of Sylvania, is considered a masterpiece, with only a few players managing to reach its true ending. Most new players encounter bad endings early in the story, often caused by wrong decisions or failing to save important characters. These choices lead to tragic outcomes, such as the hero being killed or broken, ultimately resulting in a game over. Lortel, in the early stages of the game, is a hidden hero assigned to a specific role. Unlike Fenia, who is openly admired, Lortel is treated as a villain from the start. Her true nature and importance are only revealed in the later parts of the story. To prevent losing control of the narrative and risking a bad outcome, Ed decides to avoid falling into Lortel's plans. He resolves not to play along with her intentions, and to stay cautious about every decision he makes. As Lortel keeps following Ed, persistently asking him to stop and listen, she eventually steps in front of him, flashing an innocent, angelic smile. She politely requests him to spare 2 hours to hear what she has to say. Ed, clearly annoyed, asks how long she plans to trail behind him. Lortel playfully responds that she didn't expect him to ignore her for so long, gritting his teeth as if her presence didn't bother him at all. Lortel, being the only daughter of the magnate elite Ketchuln, is no ordinary student. As part of the elite, she is deeply entangled in the political rivalry with Princess Fenia for control over the academy. Ed, however, has no interest in getting involved in her schemes. Determined not to fall into her cunning trap, he briskly resumes walking, hoping to shake her off. Undeterred, Lortel continues with her sweet, flattering words, trying to win his attention. She even offers to help him with anything he needs. Ed, unimpressed, advises her not to make promises she doesn't truly mean. Yet Lortel refuses to give up. She steps in front of him again, this time with even more charm, claiming to have great respect for him despite the rumors of him being arrogant and self-centered. To make her offer more enticing, Lortel takes out 3 gold coins, worth an entire month's earnings for most students, and presents them as a down payment, hoping to finally get Ed's attention. Lortel makes her offer. She wants Ed to be friends with Janica. With a sly, fox-like smile, she slips 3 gold coins into his pocket, saying that having more people on her side is always a good thing. Ed studies her carefully and, with a hint of curiosity, asks if the famed Golden Daughter also buys her connections. Impressed by Lortel's understanding of her political position, Ed realizes she is already strategizing for control of the academy. Despite being a first-year student, she is gathering allies to strengthen her influence, which Ed finds remarkable. He extends his hand for a handshake, acknowledging her ambition. During the handshake, Ed shares a lesson with her. He says that for people who have always been rich, even a small moment of poverty can break their spirit. But for those in desperate situations, even a small amount of money can make them abandon their pride, betray their families, or even sell themselves. Taking advantage of desperate people is surprisingly easy and common, and he is neither desperate nor wants to take money for any cunning offers. After saying this, Ed pulls his hand away, places the coins back in her palm. Then he walks off, leaving Lortel stunned and amused by his cleverness. Ed feels frustration, knowing that accepting the money could have made things easier for him, but he can't risk altering the storyline. Lortel Ketchuln doesn't feel insulted by Ed's straightforward rejection. She understands the balance of benefits and risks all too well. In the game, she is the ideal business strategist, always seizing any opportunity that comes her way. Her character is known to turn situations to her advantage in the game. In other words, Lortel has a determined attitude to turn Janica Failover into one of her allies for political benefits. At night, Janica visits Lortel's quarters. Lortel greets her with a playful smile, teasing that she hadn't expected a visit. It's their first meeting since their intense duel. Janica apologizes for using an intermediate-level spell during the joint combat exercise, acknowledging the rules she unintentionally broke. Noticing Lortel's injuries still visible, she expresses concern. However, Lortel brushes it off lightly, assuring Janica that her wounds will heal soon. Then, with a playful grin, Janica casually shifts the topic and asks if Lortel's conversation with Ed goes well, adding a bit of dramatic tension. Lortel catches off guard, tries to deflect the question, claiming she doesn't understand what Janica is referring to. Janica, grinning knowingly, reveals her spirit powers, saying that although she usually keeps her spirits away from personal matters, they enjoy eavesdropping on conversations. This revelation momentarily stuns Lortel, leaving her at a loss for words. Seizing the moment, Janica asserts her seniority, leans in real close and calls out Lortel's strategy of using gold coins to gain allies. She emphasizes that sincerity and genuine bonds cannot be bought. To make Lortel feel a little jealous, Janica then talks about Ed's approach, saying it was much more genuine and heartfelt than Lortel's way of doing things. Janica laughs, feeling hilarious of herself for showing her authority as a senior. She thinks maybe she bragged a bit too much. Before leaving Lortel's room, she says sorry again for hurting her during the training, remarking that one day she'll be strong enough to summon a high-level spirit like hers, but she needs to keep working harder for it. As Janica leaves, Lortel thinks about her. She realizes Janica isn't as innocent as she seems. Behind her cheerful and friendly personality, Janica is strong and uses her happy attitude to survive in the dark world. But right now, Lortel feels Janica seems a bit different, like she's dealing with something difficult. Back at his camp, Ed is hanging his laundry when a strong gust of wind blows it all down. It's caused by Belmaya, the senior maid from Sylvania's Awfulest dormitory, who once kicked him out of the dorms. Seeing how he's living now, she comments that it's surprising but admits she's happy to see some positive changes in him. Awfulest hall maids are known for their perfection in everything, from cleaning to cooking. Ed can't help but stare at the basket Belle is holding, filled with the finest ingredients she collected from the forest. Shocked to see her at his camp, Belle tells Ed not to be so much shy as he can ask her anything he wants. Taking advantage of the moment, Ed asks for the basket. He knows it will help him improve his crafting skills to make medicines, food, and other useful things. Seeing a chance to be good friend with the maid, Ed uses the basket to craft new tools and food. At sunset, he sits and enjoys his hard work, even having some fun. But the rest doesn't last long. Suddenly someone crashes down from the sky, destroying Ed's entire tent, nearly killing him with the crash. It's Lucy. Seeing his precious camp ruined, Ed is furious. He angrily tells Lucy she almost killed him. When he demands an explanation, she admits it was Belmaya who was moody for some reason, and got angry with her earlier for skipping class that morning. In her panic, she decided to teleport to the only safe place she could think of, Ed's camp, accidentally wrecking it in the process. Feeling no remorse, Lucy complains she's hungry and asks Ed if he has any beef jerky. Furious, Ed smacks her on the head and yells at her for causing such a big mess. He gets surprised when the most powerful mage doesn't defend herself with a protective spell. Lucy winces and explains she's out of magic, which gives Ed the perfect opportunity. He decides to teach her a lesson for destroying his camp and skipping her classes. At the library, Ed is busy searching for a book to help him learn how to build a sturdier house using real wood. He focuses on understanding the materials needed, planning the structure, and mastering techniques like smoothing wood and finishing a roof. As he flips through the pages, he notices it's almost closing time. While he's packing up the books, a girl approaches him with a friendly remark about his dedication to studying. Thinking she might be the librarian apprentice, Ed quickly apologizes for staying late. The girl, smiling warmly, reassures him that it's not a problem. She says seeing someone study so seriously motivates her to work harder too. She introduces herself as Elka Island, a first-year student in the Faculty of Magic. But when Ed tells her his name, she freezes for a moment, looking surprised. Ed isn't surprised. He's used to people reacting this way because of his character's notorious reputation. Kay quickly smiles and says he seems very different from the rumors. She's especially amazed that he managed to read and understand difficult books on elemental studies so quickly. She admits it's hard to believe it's the same Ed everyone talks about. Before leaving, Elka says she'll be cheering for him and wishes him a safe trip back as she has to return to her dorm to clean up, leaving Ed feeling slightly encouraged by her kind words. Suddenly, a loud crash shakes the ground in the library, causing books to tumble from the shelves and fall on Ed and Elka, creating chaos all around. It marks the start of the final chapter of Episode 1 in the game. On campus, students rush toward a temporary camp led by the main character, Taylor. Among them, Ayla, noticing the disaster, recalls a passage from a spirit book she once read. It speaks of a summoning ritual for Glaskin, the highest-ranked dark spirit. Fenia listens intently as Ayla explains that only someone with a strong connection to spirits could summon Glaskin, and that person is Janica Failover. As per the storyline, Janica, now the final boss of Act 1, has lost control of the dark spirit, allowing it to take over her completely. Fenia, understanding the gravity of the situation, realizes that the barriers protecting the temporary camp will only hold for a limited time. Taylor steps up and urges everyone to head to the student center immediately. He explains that if Glaskin fully manifests, the chances of casualties will be extremely high, and the group must act quickly to ensure everyone's safety. The Royal Guard captain reassures the students not to worry, explaining that the faculty and expert mages will notice the situation soon and intervene. However, Elvira Aniston, an outspoken member of the alchemy faculty, urges immediate action from within. She warns that the dark spirit's power is too dangerous to wait for help, especially since Principal Obel is out of town. Elvira then calls for volunteers to face the threat directly. Klebius, a combat department student and another key character, quickly refuses to volunteer, clearly frightened by the immense power of the dark spirit. He explains that while intermediate-level spirits guard the building where Janica is located, two high-ranked spirits, Tarkin and Velosfer, are also inside. He claims entering the building is suicidal and strongly opposes the idea. Elvira grows more puzzled, questioning how Janica, still a student, managed to summon all these spirits, including the effort to summon Glaskin, the highest-ranked dark spirit. Ayla, with her knowledge of dark spirits, explains that such spirits are natural enemies of spirit sorcerers. Their overwhelming power often exceeds the control of even skilled sorcerers. This likely explains why Janica couldn't handle them, leaving her vulnerable to being overpowered. The dark spirits, now in control, are using Janica's abilities to summon Glaskin with the help of Tarkin and Velosfer. spirits whose controlling their command is a mystery. As everyone debates the best course of action, Jix stands up and reminds the group of the importance of making a decision quickly. He suggests that only Princess Fenia can devise a proper strategy. All eyes turn to Fenia as they wait for her command. Fenia, reflecting on Ed's earlier remarks about the burden she carries and the importance of peace of mind, takes a moment to think. Finally, she announces her plan. Only the top students from each year and the royal guards will volunteer for the mission. She orders them to prepare within an hour to enter the building, free Janica, and stop the summoning of the highest-ranked dark spirit, Glaskin, before they cause further destruction. Princess Fenia encourages everyone to steel their resolve, promising to take full responsibility for the mission. Just then, a student runs up to her, panting and visibly distressed. He informs the princess that the residents of the teaching area will not be able to assist, as they are already defending Audrey Hall to protect the potion archives from attacks. Realizing their limited numbers, Fenia asks if there are any other students who can help. Suddenly, another student, a frightened girl, rushes to the princess, trembling as she reports an emergency in the library. She reveals that Elka, the librarian apprentice, and a sophomore student are trapped inside. Hearing Elka's name, Jix immediately reacts. Grabbing the girl by the shoulders, he demands confirmation that Elka is still in the library. When the girl confirms, Jix panics, stating that he must save his best friend immediately because Elka has no way to defend herself. Fenia quickly intervenes, commanding Jix to calm down. She reminds him that stopping Janica and the dark spirits must be their top priority. Fenia assures Jix that Elka might be safe since a sophomore student is also with her. However, Jix questions the reliability of an unknown student and how they can trust them to protect Elka. Fenia turns to the girl and asks if she knows the identity of the sophomore student in the library. The girl, shaking with fear, hesitates, unable to speak. Jix grows impatient and presses her for an answer. Finally, in a shaky voice, the girl confesses that the sophomore in the library is none other than Ed Rothstaylor. Her answer leaves everyone in shock. The girl starts crying, apologizing for abandoning the library earlier. She explains that she left Elka in charge because Ed was staying late into the night, and his presence had annoyed her. Jix becomes furious, refusing to leave Elka alone with Ed, whose infamous reputation precedes him. His anger and worry for his best friend escalate the tension in the room. Fenia casually advises Jix to relax and trust Ed for once. Her unexpected suggestion leaves everyone frozen in surprise. Jix, however, doesn't find the advice amusing. Fueled by worry and rage, he jumps high into the air, cutting through dark spirits with fury as he charges toward the library shouting Ed's name, determined to reach him and punish him if he touches Elka. Jix's story is unlike other characters. He grew up wandering the harsh northern prairies, separated from his family at a young age with no memories of them. Living like a barbarian, he survived by scavenging from corpses or hunting deer to sell their meat. People feared him because he came from a harsh, chaotic land where only the strong survived. His life as a savage changed when he met Elka, his first true friend. Her family treated him kindly, helping him leave his wild ways behind and become more civilized. For Jix, Elka is everything, and he would do anything to protect her. As Jix rushes to the library, he cuts through dark spirits, smashes the door open, and yells Ed's name. He only knows Ed from bad rumors about cheating and bullying. Inside, Jix finds Ed leaning against a wall, covered in blood and too weak to move. Jix grabs him and demands to know where Elka is. Ed, injured and exhausted, simply points in her direction. Jix pushes him aside and runs to find her. When he reaches Elka, Jix sees her lying safely on a shelf, asleep. He feels relieved but notices the barricaded bookcases protecting her. He wonders who set them up. Then, he spots a blood-stained coat covering her and a board with instructions written on it. Realizing the blood isn't hers, he understands that Ed had protected her, fighting off dark spirits and guarding her even while injured. Moments earlier, Ed uses his strength from training to lift the heavy bookshelves and carry the unconscious Elka. He sets up barricades around her for protection, places her inside, and writes instructions on a board nearby. Then he stays to guard her. From the library window, he notices the summoning rune but closes the curtain, choosing not to interfere with the major storyline involving other key characters. He reflects on Janica's impressive connection with spirits and wonders how she could have turned to the dark side, summoning and controlling materialized spirits, something he finds impossible for himself. When dark spirits approach Elka, Ed fights them head-on. After defeating the intermediate-level spirits, he notices his stats have slightly improved. Surprisingly, he even unlocks some spirit connection abilities, leaving him curious about his potential. As Jix carries Elka to safety, he asks Ed what happened in the library. Ed casually replies that he was just training. Jix laughs at the response and thanks Ed for saving Elka, promising to repay the favor someday. Ed recognizes Jix as Taylor's trusted ally and best friend in the game. Knowing Jix plays a crucial role in the storyline, Ed advises Jix to join Taylor and follow his lead to fix the ongoing chaos. Jix is surprised by Ed speaking so highly of Taylor, as they barely interact. However, Ed's motive is to ensure Taylor unlocks his slash element, essential for defeating the high-ranked spirit, Tarkin, with Jix's help, as it happens in the original game storyline. Jix thanks Ed for the advice and leaves, allowing Ed to finally rest. As Ed sits to relax, he notices something strange. Jix and Taylor aren't friends yet. He remembers that in the original game, Taylor and Jix become friends after a duel where Taylor learns the slash element by cutting through Jix's magic. This event was supposed to happen before the Act 1 finale, but now things are happening earlier than planned. Without their friendship, Taylor hasn't learned the slash element, which is key to defeating Tarkin. Ed realizes the storyline is falling apart and changing. Back at the camp, Jix returns with Elka and apologizes for being late. The team tells him it's no use. They already tried and failed to invade. The captain, soldiers, and some students are injured, and they've had to retreat. Now they don't have the strength to fight Tarkin again. Ed arrives at the camp, surprising everyone. Seeing the situation, he realizes the ritual to summon Glaskin is almost complete. If they don't act soon, everything will be destroyed. Ed knows stepping in will change the storyline, but he has no choice if he wants to save the game world. He takes charge, forming two teams and deciding to lead one himself. From now on, Ed chooses to step into the storyline to stop the disaster. Seeing Ed Rothstaylor, everyone is shocked and keeps their eyes fixed on him. Klebius ridiculously laughs at Ed's suggestion, thinking it's a joke, but Jix interrupts, urging everyone to hear Ed out. Ed explained the situation. To reach Janica, they had to distract Tarkin, the fire spirit, and deal with Velocipher, the darkness spirit controlling her. Tarkin was protected by a strong shell, which they saw during their first attempt, and that was why they couldn't hurt it. Ed suggested splitting into 2 teams, one to lure Tarkin away, and the other to reach Janica directly. Lortel disagrees, saying it's impossible since they lack the training to handle a spirit as powerful as Tarkin. She reminds them they only escaped the first encounter by sheer luck. Ed agrees it's a huge risk but insists there's no other option. If they can take out Janica, Tarkin will lose its power. The group then decides who will be in the bait team. Taylor volunteers, but Ed immediately stops him, assigning Taylor should be in the combat group. Ed assigns himself, Lortel, and Klebius to the bait team, which makes both of them scared and nervous. As Lortel and Klebius argue with Ed, Princess Phinia speaks up. The princess said she didn't fully trust Ed, but she agreed with his plan. She split the group. Taylor, Elvira, Jix, and herself would go to stop Janica, while Ed, Lortel, and Klebius would lure Tarkin away. Before they set out, Phinia gives one final command to everyone that no matter what happens, don't die. As Ed and his team reach Nail Hall Corridor, they see Tarkin, the fire spirit, standing menacingly. Ed reminds the team to follow the plan before starting their mission to distract Tarkin. Klebius, looking scared, hesitates, but Ed encourages him to stay calm. Klebius tells himself that their only job is to distract Tarkin, and the other team will handle the rest. Building up his courage, he attacks Tarkin and manages to grab its attention. Feeling relieved, Klebius turns around to ask what to do next, only to find he's all alone. Realizing he's been left behind, he panics as Tarkin starts chasing him. Running as fast as he can, Klebius yells angrily, blaming Ed and the situation for his trouble. Watching Klebius being chased, Ed calmly tells Lortel to focus on her part, assuring her that Klebius is doing his job. Lortel jokingly suggests they could let Klebius be sacrificed, but Ed strongly disagrees, saying he doesn't plan to let anyone get hurt. Ed knows Klebius well because he understands the story. Even though Klebius seems scared and unsure, Ed knows he has hidden strength. With Tarkin distracted, Ed gives Lortel her most important task to handle the spirit. Lortel stands outside the hall, focusing on her task to create an entry path for the other team and deliver a key attack on Tarkin. As she prepares, she thinks about Ed. Despite his bad reputation, he seems surprisingly cool to her. She reminds herself not to judge someone based on rumors alone. She uses her magic to blow a huge hole in the hall's wall, opening a path to where Janica is. Her powerful move surprises Princess Phinia and the others. Earlier, Ed notices Lortel's hidden magic skills and decides this is the perfect chance to use them. He trusts her with this important role, and she feels grateful for his confidence. With the path open, Lortel turns to fight Tarkin, the fire spirit. Meanwhile, Klebius runs toward them, shouting and apologizing for being scared earlier. He begs for help as Tarkin chases him. Ed quickly realizes Tarkin's protective shell blocks all attacks, just like before. They need something powerful enough to break it. Using his knowledge of the storyline, Ed grabs a pouch and climbs to the roof of the hall. Lortel protects herself and Klebius by creating a massive ice wall to block Tarkin's fire attack. On the roof, Ed finds Lucy sleeping. She isn't supposed to be part of this event, but since the story has already changed, Ed decides to involve her. He opens his pouch filled with beef jerky and tosses some into Lucy's mouth to wake her. Once she wakes up, he throws her at Tarkin while shouting for everyone to get down. Lucy, startled and crying out at Ed for being mean, unleashed her high-rank ability, Divine Punishment, to shatter Tarkin's protective shell, making it weak. With the spirit now vulnerable, Ed sees his chance. He rushes forward with all his strength to deliver the final blow to Tarkin. In Janica's whole life, people call her a symbol of hope. Her parents, friends, and teachers are always proud of her, piling on high expectations. But for Janica, it's just been this heavy weight she's carried since she was a kid. As she thinks about all of this, and these memories feel like they're shattering into tiny pieces, then the hall's wall explodes. The subduing team charges in to rescue her, but instead of relief, Janica just greets them with this eerie smile. Velocipher, the dark spirit, is fully in control of her now. Outside, Ed is trying to keep it together. He knows the final act chapter will end before dawn. He checks on Lucy, wondering if she's okay after all her effort earlier. Lortel informs him about Lucy somewhere nearby, rolling around out after breaking Tarkin's shell. Lortel adds that she's been throwing ice spears at Tarkin, but it's still standing strong. Ed figures the only way to end this is to go straight for Tarkin's throat. But Lucy, who already runs out of energy, and Klebius, who's being chased around by the fire spirit, is way too panicked to land a proper hit. Ed knows what he has to do. He's going to take care of this himself. He turns to Lortel, tells her he's putting his life in her hands to keep Tarkin still. Lortel, ever the skeptic, calls it a wild gamble, but Ed just grins and says it's an investment in getting rid of the monster for her. This gets her attention as that's her area of expertise. She smiles, saying he's way cooler than the princess, who's always acting like a royal monarch. Fired up, Lortel starts setting traps with her ice magic. Just as Ed charges toward Tarkin, another massive dark spirit shows up on the top of the hall building, the right hand of Glaskin, making the whole situation even worse. Ed figures Taylor's team must be at the final stage of their fight, but he can't let that distract him. He trusts Lortel will not mess up, even with all this chaos. As Tarkin is about to launch a fire blast straight at Ed, Lortel nails the timing, using her traps to block the attack and give Ed an opening. He slides in close, channels his wind magic, and slices right through Tarkin's throat. The fiery beast finally goes down. As the dust settles, Ed checks his stats and grins. His spirit magic levels are way up, and he's unlocked a spirit contract slot, something he never thought he'd get. He glances over and spots Taylor, who's busy slicing Glaskin's right-hand spirit to bits like it's no big deal. Watching him in action, Ed can't help but feel impressed. Taylor's really living up to his protagonist role. With Tarkin defeated and Janica freed from Velocipher's grip, the group finally catches a break. They've pulled it off. The danger is over. Lortel chuckles as she remarks that she's met plenty of people in her life who claimed they were risking everything, but most of them turned out to be cowards. She's amused that even after going through a life and death crisis together, Ed doesn't show much emotion. With a sly grin, she shakes hands with him again, this time slipping 3 gold coins into his palm as a token of gratitude. On the other hand, before he can process the moment, Taylor arrives. His hair has turned white from the immense power he used to defeat Glaskin's right hand, and there's a look of resentment in his eyes as he stares at Ed. Ed can't help but admire how incredible Taylor looks in his swordsman form, embodying the role of the game's protagonist perfectly. Even though Ed has his own reasons to resent Taylor, the sight is undeniably impressive. To Ed's surprise, Taylor bows deeply and thanks him for saving the academy, saying he owes Ed a huge debt. His gratitude is genuine, but Clebius, still shaken, interrupts by sobbing and yelling about how no one should ever trust someone like Ed. This outburst is quickly shut down by the others, leaving Clebius grumbling in the background. Finally, Princess Phoenix steps forward. With her usual grace, she thanks Ed sincerely, acknowledging how much he's done for them all. Princess offers Ed to join the student council for his heroic acts, but Ed gently declines, giving credit to the team instead. Elvira teases him in her usual playful manner, while Jix jumps in, insisting that she show some respect. Ed can't help but smile as he watches the group interact. Seeing all the key characters together makes him feel warm inside. Even though Ed has been staying away from the main characters to keep the storyline intact, he feels a quiet sense of fulfillment watching them grow and bond. Each character has their own path. Taylor grows stronger through every trial. Isla becomes more resilient alongside him. Fenia embraces her role as a monarch and matures into adulthood, and others play their part to build toward a collective success. Ed steps away from the group, heading to the hall to check on Janica. Despite sensing that the storyline might have shifted slightly, he knows his role is to guide the protagonists while staying in the background, ensuring they each shine in their own way. Ed finds a bruised and battered Janica hiding in the chest inside the destroyed hall. Back on the ground, when Ed asks everyone why Janica turns berserk, Lortel shares her theory. She explains that when she visits Janica's room, it is covered with letters and posts on the walls, along with piles of gifts from people outside the academy, mostly from family and friends with high expectations for her success. Lortel believes the overwhelming pressure makes Janica obsessive and vulnerable, forcing her to honor everyone with replies and thanks. The dark spirit Velisfer exploits this darkness in Janica, turning her into a berserk spirit mage to summon Glaskin. Ed wonders why the final act happened so early. He realizes that during the joint combat training, Taylor is supposed to defeat Lucy and gain fame, but instead, Taylor's loss shifts the storyline. The audience becomes fans of Janica, the only senior to win against a first-year student, putting her under immense pressure to maintain her standards. Ed then notes that while both Lucy and Janica make contracts with spirits, Lucy spends more time in the forest, strengthening her bond naturally. Janica, however, lacks that connection, and Ed blames himself for being in the forest and altering the game's storyline. Janica tells Ed she feels forgotten amidst the chaos, which hurts her. She admits that after wreaking havoc on such a grand stage, she thinks others will look for her but they don't. Ed consoles her, making her laugh a little. Janica says she doesn't expect him to find her so quickly and just wants to stay hidden a little longer, as she feels close to ugly crying. This makes Ed tear up as well. Ed recalls Marilda, the spirit wolf, telling him to save Janica one day. He realizes this moment is what he means, preventing Janica from falling into such despairs. Ed now gets why the wolf said those words to him. Everyone else is putting a lot of pressure on Janica, while Ed keeps his distance, making Janica feel like he's the one she can rely on. Because of all this pressure, Janica messes up while trying to form a contract with a high-ranked spirit. She rushes through the summoning ritual and ends up being taken over by the dark spirit, causing the faculty building to be destroyed. She studies magic every night and tries to make everyone happy who supports her. But even though she seems to meet everyone's expectations on the outside, she's struggling a lot on the inside. Seeing her work so hard and still fail is both sad and beautiful to Ed. He tells Janica that she's worked hard and offers her comfort with those words. Outside, the main characters are being praised, but the hall is quiet and dark. Hearing Ed's kind words, Janica starts crying. To Ed's surprise, all of Janica's spirit friends appear in the hall to support him. For the first time, Ed sees the spirits. Even though he's watched this part of the story many times, he's never seen them before, and now he feels like he's truly seeing the end of the first act. Ed's stats go up, and he levels up to 10. He can now see spirit animals that want to bond with him. The high-ranked spirit wolf shows a lot of interest in him, and they form a bond. 10 days have passed since Janica's disciplinary committee trial. She admits her mistakes and says she's ready to accept her punishment. However, her friends and teachers stand by her, offering full support even during her tough time. Her other friends, including the main characters, argue that Janica shouldn't be punished because it wasn't her fault. She was overpowered by the dark spirit Velisfer and didn't act intentionally. Even Lortel steps in, covering the costs for restoring the building. She doesn't ask for anything in return except a reduction in custom fees on school supplies for the students. Initially, Janica's punishment included losing all her top student benefits, having her achievements revoked, disqualification from the academy. But thanks to the pressure from her friends and teachers, the committee decides to cancel her expulsion and give her another chance while giving only some amount of probation and suspension. Overall, Janica's friends are relieved she's staying, but they notice she seems a little stressed. To cheer her up, they organize a fancy tea party and agree not to bring up anything related to the incident around her. When Janica's friends invite her to join them, she suddenly asks, out of the blue,